Hey everyone, Rick here, and folks, welcome to my game room. Happy New Year, everyone. It is 2022, which means it is time for the yearly game room tour. And I'm going to do what I have been meaning to do the last couple years, and that is just do a quick overview of everything first. So those who want to get in and get out can do so, and then we can deep dive into some stuff once we get the overview done. So first, we're just doing a quick 360 of the game room. It's in the basement of my house. And what better place to start than right here? So folks, my name is Rick Keppen. I've had this YouTube channel for, good Lord, like 15 years. 2006 is when I began it. When I was back in high school. And believe me, there are still some high school vids posted on the channel. They're just private right now. But it wasn't until like 2010 when I started to actually record tabletop gaming content. So yes, as you can see here, it's board games, folks. It's tabletop gaming, board game, card games, dice games, miniature games, and a little bit of retro gaming down here, but this video is going to be primarily tabletop gaming. I know it seems like whenever I do these game room tours, I'll always get the stray comment here or there, you know, like, oh, super disappointed. I was hoping this was a video game room tour. And I know those are super popular too, and I absolutely love watching those myself, actually. But no, this is going to be tabletop gaming related. So like I said, about 2010 is when I started recording tabletop gaming content for the channel. And what was I recording? I was mostly recording unboxings. Unboxings because that's what I like to watch. Not even just unboxings of specific products, but like package unboxings. People would post their hauls and, you know, what they got in the mail and open it up and show off all these cool new games. It was in late 2009, I think I joined Board Game Geek, which of course I think a lot of tabletop gamers would say is also kind of what set them off. And and I meant to say this at the beginning, but if there's anything that I'm showing in this overview that you have questions on, definitely just pop them in the chat. Some of this stuff I've had forever, and it's going to be nearly impossible for me to recall where I got it or find a link, but some of it's more recent that I may be able to help out with. So yeah, I started out actually as a miniatures gamer. Mage Knight is actually where it all began for me. Mage Knight, not the board game, the collectible pre-painted miniature battle game that came in booster packs like these. These are all sealed product over here. Ignore the cable. That is just, I'm working from home, so I got hardwired into my modem, my router, so unfortunately that's the way that has to be. But we definitely went a little overboard with, you know, the nostalgia recently, grabbing as much sealed Mage Knight product as possible. It's not one of those things where I intend to keep it sealed, but because, you know, you could still use those boosters for booster drafts and whatnot, but definitely because, you know, I was like 12 years old at the time. So seeing those Mage Knight figures early 2000, 2001 absolutely blew me away. So that's how it all began with Mage Knight. And of course, Pokemon cards at the time, Dragon Ball Z collectible cards, Magic the Gathering. But it was Mage Knight that really triggered my whole gaming enthusiasm. Now, there was, you know, some people in the hobby may call it a dark age where you kind of leave the hobby for a while. And that definitely happened to me. I really wasn't gaming a whole lot through high school, but once about 2009, 2010, when I joined Board Game Geek, at the time I was kind of getting back into miniature wargaming. And it was one of those situations where I was really into collecting old school fantasy games. And by old school, I'm talking about like 70s. Like Dungeons and Dragons came out in 74. I wasn't even a thought. I wouldn't be a thought for another almost decade and a half. But a lot of this stuff is actually how I began my collection. Magic Realm, uh, Dragon Pass, Divine Right, a lot of these Hex Encounter old school fantasy games. This is how I began my collection. And then I discovered Modern Designer. Oh, that's right. Here's Ricky. And here's Henry. Just, I mean, what else am I going to do with these guys after Halloween's over than scare the living daylights of people who come over and see? And of course, they are playing Mystic Quest right now. Speaking of video games, we can get this out of the way now. We have a couple consoles down here with some games and controllers and memory cards and all that other fun stuff down underneath here. But it is mostly tabletop and miniature gaming. But let's go to Exhibit A, Agricola. Agricola is what started it all when I discovered Board Game Geek, and at the time Agricola, I believe, was #1. It was either that or Puerto Rico. But then I had to pick it up. I watched Scott Nicholson's video review of Agricola, and I was 100% hooked. I picked up a copy, I was enthralled, and then the addiction began. I was living in my parents' basement at the time, and honestly, the vast majority of what you see around here was also stored in my parents' basement, believe it or not. Oh my gosh, my bedroom in their basement was wall-to-wall tabletop gaming. So that kept expanding and expanding, and eventually I turned back into miniature wargaming with Warhammer Fantasy. So we have armies of the Empire over on the right. We have orcs and goblins over on the left. And I mean, it's just all over the place. Even a lot of these displays, this display case, these glass cubes, even the slice of grid wall back there up on the wall, this was all in my parents' basement, if you can believe it or not. So when I moved into this house about 6.5 years ago, I went with the IKEA Kallax shelves, and I brought over all my displays. So that way I could, and the whole purpose of this was to have like a slice of a game store in my game room. And of course I love dice, so I go super heavy on dice. And this isn't just for display purposes. This is fully utilitarian. Whenever someone comes over, I say, all right, go ahead and go over there and grab some dice. So, you know, everyone has the option to come over here and just grab whatever dice they want for whatever the game that we're playing is. But there are some sealed things, like I'll buy multiple copies of something. Melee and Wizard, actually the Fantasy Trip kind of bridged that gap for me originally, because again, back in the day, I was all about the old school sword and sorcery fantasy tabletop gaming. That includes the Fantasy Trip, and I have videos on a lot of this stuff. But you can kind of see back in this corner, I have all of the original Fantasy Trip material. There's also some larger books over there. Some of my favorite Fantasy Trip things, though, are, I hope you can kind of see it, some original, still sealed blister packs of figures, which is crazy. But of course, when Steve Jackson Games reprinted it, that was something I absolutely had to have. So anyway, again, I don't want to dwell on any one thing right now, but we have Free Blades figures over here. So again, getting back to the miniature wargaming skirmish stuff, I was into Warhammer Fantasy, Free Blades, Frostgrave. Not a whole lot of tabletop role-playing, but I did pick up a bunch of figures for, you know, my little slice of the game shop in my game room. And you'll notice there's a bunch of these capsule machines too. If you haven't seen my videos before, just know I am a super impulsive person. So I went through this vending phase where I had to have vending machines. But this shelf over here, this display case, has a bunch of figures in it. I don't paint or assemble figures myself very often. 99% of any figures you see in my game room were not painted by me. I get them commission painted from a couple different sources. But I also really enjoy when they come pre-painted like these confrontation figures did. I will say I did put those foreground buildings together. Don't those look freaking fantastic? So it's either pre-paints or I have companies commission paint the stuff for me. Of course, we have the snack zone. Now, thanks to the current state of the world, the snack zone has been bare for a while, but I used to have this stocked with chips and snacks and pop and beer and water. I wasn't going to sneak around behind the thing because it's kind of packed with my custom games right now, as a matter of fact. Over in here, I do have cups. And I actually was able to give one of these away the other day. So I had these made, and I drew that skull, by the way, and then I sent the artwork in. Every time someone comes over to my house who hasn't been here before and plays at least one game in my house, gets a commemorative souvenir cup. If you can believe it. So, yeah. I'm all about the novelty. But anyway, so back here, I came up with so many games. Check my channel out because we typically go through a lot of it. But back in here, there's Warriors of Mana, Blades in the Deep. What else? And we have of Arrows and Blades. So these, and I have videos on all this stuff too. These are fantastic Black Label battle foam hard shell cases that are full of figures. But anyway, so this would be where I store my sleeves. My sleeves are not looking as thick right now because the Fantasy Flight sleeves seem to be going away, and I have to find a new manufacturer of board game sleeves that I like. Here's my overflow. This is a lot of recent releases. And I hate to even show this off. See how they're starting to get stacked 3 high because this little shelf only had 3 shelves on it. But yeah, this is where things have to be. I've also started sticking tabletop games underneath this thing over here. But in the display case itself, okay, what else do we... Okay, also booster packs. I absolutely love our booster pack display over there. We have a whole bunch of products in this display case. Some is super cool. So this is like my rare case, like this Wyvern Insider's Guide in shrink wrap. Of course, we have booster packs of starter decks. Still shrink there, but a lot of these different old collectible card games. Again, I was really into the old stuff just for collector's sake. We do have a Mox Jet, which I have honestly been considering selling. After seeing the prices of that, it's like I'm almost afraid, you know, what if the basement floods or something? But anyway, we have more Warhammer figures down here. We have the Grimtooth's Ultimate Traps collection. Some other just sealed stuff like Caverns Deep from Malpartha. Tunnels and Trolls, I think that's 4th edition. And we have that brown box when they did the reprint of Dungeons & Dragons, the original booklets, and they did that really cool box set in the wooden box. I got one of those. Again, lots of dice and stuff. We have some, and there's posters and artwork all over the walls. Some of the really cool stuff would be like this RPG poster, and some things my friends have made. One of those diamond paintings, tribute to a dear friend of mine who passed away, and some other stuff. This is just the ultimate poster here. This was during my fantasy trip collecting phase. We've seen all of these figures, and I have videos on them all. They absolutely look fantastic. Again, I am not the one who painted any of this stuff, but it was Blue Table Painting who did the Warhammer stuff here for me. But a lot of recent games, as we've seen, these drawers are completely full of figures, more figures, more figures, dice, and token dishes. You can never have enough token dishes. Mage Knight booster display, This castle here, I have a video on it as well. It's part of the Dicey Depths game, the Dicey Depths campaign we're running right now. This is Baron Clawfang and his stronghold, his fortress, currently being overrun by goblins. But that is neither here nor there. All right, so this whole situation here, this table, when I originally did I show this yet? Oh god, I probably didn't. When you enter the game room, this is the basement, by the way. Some dear friends of mine made that sign for me. When you enter the basement, the game room, the first thing you see is this. When I, and it's pretty cool. I mean, when you walk in here and you just see this huge wall of games, but then also this table, it was meant to be a place to play two-player games, but it became a repository for knickknacks. So we have, the newest Dungeons and Dragons dice tower from GameStop, a bunch of dice, turquoise dice. Someone gifted me those. A dear friend of mine gifted me those. We have a bunch of other dice, a bunch of like Renaissance fair finds, but of course my awards that I am so proud of. Golden Girls Trivia Champion. Oh, don't even come for me when it comes to Golden Girls. Also, when I do some competitive gaming, I love to just come up with awards. So I came up with the Dungeon of Death Award. I got one of these because anytime someone got out of the dungeon, I would give them a certificate framed. And so I did it. So yes, I get my own certificate if I do it. But also a couple friends of mine were able to do it too. So they also got certificates. So we can talk about some of my favorite games in a second, though. So here's where all the gaming happens, or at least most of the gaming happens, on my BoardGameTables.com table. It's just, and I've had this table for so long, I don't even know if they make this style. This was just a very basic style. I did have drawers put in for all 6 sides, but if I could go back, I'd probably add cup holders too. But I love the recessed playing area. I have the lid for it, which is absolutely mandatory. I just took the lid off just for this game room tour so we could show off the fact that, yes, we have a gorgeous Dwarven Forge dungeon underneath of there, and it's just under there at all times. So I'm constantly playing games and recording videos with the top on, but it's the perfect height so that the Dwarven Forge stuff is just below where the top would go. How cool is that? But this is for Dicey Depths. We did a whole video on this as well. Go check that out also. More knick-knacky stuff over here. I love this lamp of this knight, but also more dice towers. That's going to be a common theme. Dice and dice towers and dice bags. And of course, more vending machines. And when it comes to the vending machines, I, of course, pick out what I want in the vending machines. So we went with some super cool stuff. Like these come in these balls, these robots, and they're on sprues. You clip them out, and then they make robots. Or we have some knockoff Lego military stuff. We also have fortune dice, of course, again, dice, war bots, and Pumojis. There is Cecilia, so another Halloween decoration that I store down here. More games, Zaya, one of my favorite games of all time. War Quest, one of my favorite games of all time. I have all my Magic the Gathering cards in binders down here. Not all of them, just the complete sets. Again, super impulsive, so I went through a Magic the Gathering phase where I was just eBaying complete sets. So I have complete sets of everything from the Dark through Apocalypse, and also Antiquities, and then some other complete sets after that as well. But I really wanted the older stuff. So yeah, and I've had those for 10 years, and I've just been sitting on those. And you just see the price of these sets skyrocket. It's absolutely insane. More vending machine stuff with dragons and mystic gemstones that come with little pouches. Pouches are a big deal for me. So if we're talking favorite games, we've already talked about how Agricola got me into the tabletop board gaming hobby. I also love Gizmos, Crown of Amara, Kalimala, as well as CO2 is another huge favorite of mine, as well as Escape the Dark Castle, which is this black box for the collector's edition that fits just perfectly in the IKEA Kallax shelf. We have a little dragon table in the corner over there. A more recent game that's absolutely in my top 10, if not top 5 of all time, Praga Kaput Regni, and I'm probably slaughtering that name. Vladimir Suchi, that game is freaking amazing. I have some videos, I think a live unpunching, but did I also do a live or recording of me playing through it? Maybe, maybe not. I can't remember. But that is a bunch of games that I love. And then we have this room over here. This is, in the basement. I live in Nebraska, so we have basements. I should mention that more because some people are like the having a basement is like a foreign concept. But this is the utility room of the basement. So it has the water heater, the furnace, and all that stuff. But it is also where I have the vast majority of my miniature gaming terrain, figures, and other stuff. And I know it looks like an absolute mess. And I've had this organized, but I just keep getting more stuff. So this whole back area is like, 3 layers deep. You have stuff on the shelves. You can't get to the bottom shelf because there's 3 layers of stuff in front of the shelves. I just came home from the store today with some tubs because we are going to start tubbing up some of this stuff that's just loose in boxes out here to hopefully come up with a better storage solution. I said I don't do a whole lot of modeling or anything, but we do have a whole painter station. So we have the Vallejo paints, paint brushes. We have all the tools like the drills and files and clippers and blades and everything. We have, of course, all of the different flocking materials and primer. But so yeah, we have this fantastic area where all this happens. This is not something I crafted. This is just where I'm sticking this Dwarven Forge in that I created for a Dicey Depths game the other day. But there's tons of Dwarven Forge here. So there is I love the original Dwarven Forge resin sets. There's a bunch of those stacked to the ceiling. There's some more over here. As you can tell, I love the Warlock tiles and just the WizKids pre-painted accessories. They've come out with marketplaces. They've come out with streets. They've come out with so much stuff. Here is the vast majority of my Dwarven Forge Dwarvenite stuff, including accessories, but also tubs, all the way down to the floor. Behind all of this, there are more of these tubs back there. So yeah, getting to anything is an absolute chore. But what's in front of it in all these white boxes, is Eslo Terrain. Eslo Terrain recently shuttered its doors, which is an absolute shame because 10 years ago, they were one of the first terrain manufacturers of pre-painted stuff that I ever got. Look at this. This is how the terrain is shipped to you right out of the box. It looks freaking fantastic. I have multiple videos on Eslo Terrain and how much I absolutely love them. Streets, ruins, buildings, temples, farmland, hills, trees, but also Miniature Building Authority, one of my absolute favorite companies of all time. And as you can see, we have a lot of it. There's some other stuff that I got off eBay. I'm not sure who makes those. Kind of mixed in with some of this Miniature Building Authority stuff. But the castle stuff, that castle that I have out there is Miniature Building Authority as well. Lots and lots of stuff. And 2 levels deep of more Dwarven Forge stuff. A lot more Eslos. Any of those white boxes, most of them are Eslo. And then a whole bunch more terrain and figures in boxes up there. Take a look at this. Keep an eye on the channel, folks, because I've either posted this by the time you're seeing this or it's about to go up, because for Christmas I got the gigantic Tiamat figure. Of course, we have the gigantic tower. So what's some of this stuff over here? We have some Mage Knight. loose figures. All of those cardboard boxes, and they're stacked in twos. There's two more down there and down there, full of loose original Mage Knight figures. We have a computer in this room as well, just for looking up stuff, I guess. I mean, you use your phone all the time, so I'm not on that computer a whole heck of a lot. We have more figures, more terrain. There's so much stuff back there, I can't even tell you what is all back there. Uh, Piled to the ceiling with. I went to Toys R Us one day and I got so much of that stuff. It's nuts. And before Toys R Us went out of business for us in the United States, unfortunately. And I don't even know where to begin calling out some of the stuff that I see in here. So you guys let me know in the comments if you have questions about anything you see in here. We have a gigantic table. I have played games in here on this table before as well. But that is the utility room, which is about 10 different collections, any one of which could be a lifetime's worth of miniatures and terrain. And then here's the view from inside of here coming out. And again, the game room takes up the entire basement. So we have the video game area over there, which is just some of my retro consoles. Obviously, my PS4, my Switch, Xbox, PS2, 3, all that other stuff is upstairs, but we have a few retro consoles down here. Games, miniatures, the game store vibe area, old school games and that old wardrobe looking thing, display cases, figures, games all over the place, more games over there on those shelves, and the game table, of course, with the Dicey Depths dungeon we have on there right now. Vending machines, more games, and more games, and more games. I mean, there's just so much stuff. So it's already been almost a half hour. Let's round this out at a half hour by just quickly picking some games that I absolutely love from some of these shelves. So, what are some of my absolute favorite games? I think Gaia is an absolutely underrated game. And of course, you can look up any of these that I'm calling out on BoardGameGeek.com. But I've put a lot that I absolutely love over here. So we talked about Kalimala, Crown of Amara, Gizmos, but I also love King's Guild. Pandemic Fall of Rome is my favorite Pandemic as well, by the way. Stone Age is great. We also have some of the Fragor games from they used to release a big old game, super overproduced, like every Essen, but they haven't been lately. But Spellbound is probably my favorite of those. Tiny Towns, Reef, Carpe Diem, Rakeult, Wingspan, of course, Space Base, Architects of the West Kingdom, the Dungeons and Dragons Adventure Series games, and the fact now that they come out with a pre-painted version, oh, absolutely love it. Escape the Dark Castle's down there in that big black box. Let's see, let's go over here. Some smaller games. I love the Bloody Inn. Absolutely love the Bloody Inn. Love Looters. Oh gosh. Of course, Conan's great. Zombicide Black Plague is fantastic. We've called out War Quest. I love Dice Forge. Dice Forge, one of my favorite games of all time. Century Golem Edition is a fantastic game. Also love Celestia. Again, we mentioned Xayah. Love Xayah. Ethnos is fantastic. Mythotopia is fantastic. Rise of Augustus is a great gateway game. I love Master Builder. That is kind of an obscure game. Look that up. That is fantastic. You're building 3D medieval village right before your eyes. Agricola, the game that got me into board gaming, of course. CO2, possibly my one. Agricola and CO2 switch sometimes between my number one and my number two game of all time. Castle Merchants is fantastic. Lords of Waterdeep is fantastic. Fleet Commander, Black Fleet, Kingdom Builder's great. So many amazing games. But some of these more recent ones, I'm absolutely loving them. Cascadia, Calico, Red Cathedral, Little Town. Clans of Caledonia is all right. some people just live and die by Clans of Caledonia. They freaking love it. I enjoy it, but uh, Just One is a great party game. Coattl's great. Project L, Happy City, My Farm Shop. Just played that for the first time the other day. That's great. Mandala Stones. I can't wait to get Gaia Project to the table. It's still in shrink. Bees is great. Praga Kaput Regni is again top 10, if not top 5 for me. Love Era, love Meeple Land, love Quacks of Quedlinburg. Dust in the Wings is all right. So many games, so little time. All right, we are over a half hour now, including the intro and everything. So I think that's a decent place to stop. After it's never fails. After I finish recording, I'm going to think, good God, I forgot about this or I forgot about that. But please, folks, we're going to do another 360. If there's anything you want to know more about, just let me know. So here we go. We're going to start over here with the snack zone, with the old school games, with the game store vibe and all this stuff. And we're going to go around again. This time we're going to go this way, where we have the display case and those Halloween guys who always scare people when they come down here, especially the first time and they think someone's sitting there. And we have so many games, and we have the table with the dungeon on it right now, and vending machines and more games, and I think this is where we will leave it. Folks, this is my 2022 game room tour. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you for stopping by and allowing me to take you on a tour of just my absolute passion. I'm also planning on doing a Lego room tour. The Lego room is not as big as the game room, but it is very formidable on its own as well. Okay, I think I've covered pretty much everything, but if you have any questions for me, please don't hesitate to put them in the comments below. And again, thank you all so much for watching, and until